So you decided to learn the insect glaive. Will allow me to be among the first to welcome you into the Church of the Helicopter. With this weapon, you're going to be able to yeet yourself into the air and then yeet yourself towards the monster. And you also get a little Kinsect companion that you can just like shoot at the monster. He's going to headbutt the monster, collect some extracts, and then you can call him back to give you buffs and heals and all kinds of other good stuff. But as per usual with all my guides, we need to be talking about control scheme. So, as per usual, there's going to be an image on screen right now that is going to show you a PlayStation controller next to an Xbox controller, and below it you're going to find the more relevant PC controls if you're using mouse and keyboard. This is because moving forward I'm going to be talking in PlayStation terms, so if you need to, take a screenshot of this, put it on your second monitor, print it out, take some notes, whatever works for you. But this way, whenever I tell you triangle, you're going to know that I mean the Y button on the Xbox controller or the left mouse button on mouse and keyboard. And if I say circle, you're going to know that it is the B button on the Xbox controller or right mouse button. So this is just so that you guys can like situate yourself with the controls and all of that good stuff. Now, another special recommendation that I have when it comes to the insect glaive is if you happen to have a controller that has paddles or you have access to a controller with paddles, I would heavily recommend that, or a controller with alternate inputs, because quite simply, I find that the control scheme for the insect glaive is pretty bad this time around, and having paddles in the back works. Now, the way that I set up my paddles is on the paddle that is on the right side, I set that up to be circle or B or right mouse click, and on the paddle that is on the left side, I set it up to be Y or triangle. And the reasoning behind that is because you're going to be expected to be charging B or circle at the same time as you are performing other combos, which is kind of like challenging to do on a standard controller. So that's just a little extra recommendation when it comes to controls. Now, I will be talking about alternative combos that you can do that don't require you to like, do some weird gang sign on top of your gamepad, if that happens to be the case. But, I just think that mouse and keyboard users are definitely going to have a much better time with this weapon. And players who have gamepads with paddles are also going to have a much easier time. Now, me personally, I'm using the Scuff Gaming Envision Pro. I'm going to show an image of it on screen. This is a review unit that was sent to me. I'm still evaluating it and figuring out how I feel about the controller. But for the objective of having paddles, it's a pretty good controller, feels pretty good to play so far, but I'll probably be making a dedicated video about it later. So anyways, let's get things started and let's get into focus mode. So, when it comes to focus mode with the insect glaive, my recommendation is you definitely want to be having focus mode on toggle. For those of you that don't know how to do that, you can go to options, go to controllers, and then on the second page, you'll have right here, aim, focus mode controls, and press L2 to toggle mode. Now, the reasoning is, in the specific case of the insect glaive, if you are not in focus mode and you attack, it's just a standard attack, right? Whether you're pressing triangle or circle, just a bunch of standard attacks. Whereas if you're in focus mode and you attack, you're going to shoot out your Kinsect. Only with the triangle attack, not the circle attack, even though there are some situations where the circle attack also shoots out the Kinsect, like the second attack of circle. But yeah, basically you want to be playing in focus mode when you are playing with the insect glaive because that is going to shoot out the Kinsect. However, there is a reason to turn off focus mode, and I'm going to be going over some of these things in more detail, so bear with me. But in the event that you are in the air, right, which is something that I'll explain how to do later, which is the vaulting mechanic. In the event that you are in the air, let's say that for whatever reason, you would like to yeet yourself towards the right side. You're not going to be able to do that in focus mode. You can kind of like yeet yourself with the dodge, but you can't do the standard attack and have it go to the side because it will always go towards where you are aiming. And people who've played the insect glaive before, you will know that this can sometimes be useful because the monster moves away, and rather than having to turn your camera all the way around, you can just like eat yourself towards the side. If you're outside of focus mode, however, you are allowed to do that, which I turned on focus mode there by mistake, but yeah, you can kind of just like yeet yourself off to the side regardless of where your camera is facing. So if you need to have that more granular control while you're in the air, you'll want to turn focus mode off. But for the majority of time, you're going to be with focus mode on. Another thing that I've noticed is that I believe the character moves slightly faster, is easier to maneuver from a defensive standpoint when focus mode is not on. So keep that in mind as well. If you need to be a little bit more defensive, you might want to turn focus mode off. You're not going to be attacking anyways, so it's not going to be as big of a deal. But anyways, that is focus mode in a nutshell. When it comes to the Insect Glaive, I would also recommend people to get used to pressing L1 to focus on monsters, which, in case you guys aren't aware, you can press down on R3, which I actually don't know what the button for that is on PC. It's whatever the lock-on button is. But yeah, you can press down on R3, and that is going to set up a target for the monster, which you can see on the bottom left-hand side. And then if you press on L1, or the left bumper, that is going to face your camera towards the monster. I kind of feel like for this weapon, this is going to be particularly relevant because you're going to be in focus mode. Sometimes the monster is going to move away. Maybe you have camera speed a little bit slower. Pressing L1 will focus you back on the monster, and that is going to be something that might be useful for those of you playing in focus mode. Now then, let's start by talking about the weapon gauge. If you look to the top left-hand side, you're going to see a cute little bug symbol. That is your Kinsect. Then there's going to be a little yellow bar, and that yellow bar is your Kinsect stamina. So if I shoot out my Kinsect, which I'll teach you how to do later, you'll notice that while he's out, he's expending stamina, particularly if you have him perform more actions, like if you have him attack and just have him like repeatedly attacking. You'll notice that every attack is going to consume a little bit of stamina. Now, the Kinsect that I have is a little bit more powerful than the one you'll have at the very beginning. Usually, I keep things standard with the more beginning-friendly Kinsects, but it's just the beginning Kinsect is just such a nightmare to use that I don't feel like using it, okay? So I'm just going to use a more advanced Kinsect. My apologies, all right? But yeah, the stamina gauge, tells you how much stamina your Kinsect has. It recovers automatically as you are playing through the game. So usually you don't have to worry too much about it. But in case you are sending out your Kinsect by shooting out like pheromones, which is something that you can do, and your Kinsect goes out and just keeps attacking that thing, and then you're wondering, oh, my Kinsect keeps coming back. Why is that? Because he runs out of stamina. And when he runs out of stamina, he needs to come back to you to rest for a little bit so that he can then kind of like improve himself. All right? But yeah, then the other thing that you will see there is going to be the extracts, the 1, 2, 3. 1 is always going to be red, 2 is always going to be white, and 3 is always going to be orange. These are your extracts, and the way to look at it, you can look at red as your offensive buff, you can look at white as your movement buff, and you could look at orange as your defensive buff. There's way more nuance to it than that, but I want to keep things simple for now, so this is just so that you guys understand. But basically, you want to always have all 3 of those buffs up, because otherwise you're going to get heavily penalized. To give you guys an idea, it straight up changes the moveset of your weapon, the damage that your moves inflict, how high you can jump, and also gives you a whole lot of defensive bonuses like increased resistance to tremors, roars, increased defense, and a bunch of other buffs. So basically, when you are playing this weapon, the whole weapon is balanced so that you are expected to always have as many extracts as possible. So we need to talk about these extracts, so I'm going to go ahead and spend the extracts, I guess. Let me just charge this up, and we're going to expend these extracts in a special attack. I'll tell you guys how to do this, but yeah, doing this attack is going to consume all the extracts. So now if you guys notice, our attacks are going to be fairly weak right now when compared to the ones that we had previously, even though you're probably not paying that much attention to the animations, but we can't even charge up that special attack that I did because we don't have our buffs. So the way that this weapon works is you are going to be expected to collect buffs from the enemies. And in order to see what buffs you can get from which part, because the way that it's going to work is the part of the monster that you hit with your Kinsect is going to give you a different buff. So if you press down on the right trigger, that's going to give you another target. So you already have a target because you have toggle focus mode on, but then you press right trigger and that gives you yet another target. And that target is going to change colors depending on where you're aiming. So that means that if I shoot my Kinsect out in this direction, I'm going to get the orange buff. So this specific area of the monster gets me orange. If we aim usually towards the monster's head, that is going to give you red. So I'm taking it that this particular simulacrum here that we have, this little training barrel dummy thing, considers that this little portion that slams down to be the monster's head. If you shoot the head, you usually get the red buff, which is one of the most important ones. The other buff that you want to get is white. White looks like it's going to be in the framing here. Usually white, you can get it in legs or wings, depending on the monster, because it's not like super standardized. And usually orange is in the more defensible parts of the monster. But still, you're going to have to scan around it. I know for a fact that some of the Temnocerons, those are annoying as hell to get because you have to hit them in their little legs, their very skinny legs, and it's very annoying to get that buff. And you guys are like, okay, you've shown me how to identify where to get each of the buffs. Now, how do I do it? So you hold down on the trigger like I'm holding down right now, and then you're going to press on triangle. That's going to shoot out the Kinsect. Now, you're also going to be seeing another extract type, which is green. Green gives you a small heal. So if you shoot out the Kinsect here, you actually ended up hitting the portion that has orange. Okay, look, this is a good time for me to tell you that your Kinsect is not the most precise tool in the game, okay? A lot of times it'll tell you, yes, hit here to get white, but your Kinsect ends up hitting something else. And let me tell you, the Kinsect is actually a little bit more accurate than the Kinsect we had during the beta. Because during the beta, you'd shoot out the Kinsect, that bastard would fly out to Narnia for some strange reason, just go like straight up to the moon. Dude was gambling in crypto coins or something. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, you're supposed to shoot the Kinsect and it's going to hit the specific spot. We're not really hitting it because the Kinsect's actually hitting down here. That's why it keeps getting the orange buff. There, we hit it with the green, and if you return the green, it gives you a slight heal. It's not like a massive heal, it's not like a big deal. You can buff it, and there are other things that you can do with your Kinsect that can also heal you in other different ways. But for now, just be aware. You target where you want, and then you press right trigger and circle, and he returns and he gives you the buff. So for instance, if I hit here, that should be the white buff. You hit the right trigger and circle, and you call him back. So again, right trigger and triangle to send him out, right trigger and circle to call him back. And this is something that, while you don't have to do it as much in this Monster Hunter, it is still something that is useful to know. And again, one of the most important ones is going to be red, white, and then orange by that order, from my personal opinion. But still, in this particular Monster Hunter, you want to make sure that you get all three. Because once you get all three, you are going to be more buffed up and your attacks are going to be different. Like, just compare the standard triangle attacks when we are buffed, which is this, which looks pretty good, right? And now let's have a look, see what happens when we are not buff. I'm going to charge this up and spend our buff without recovering any of the extracts. And now let's look at what our attacks are looking like. So much weaker, right? So the whole point is going to be get those buffs as fast as you possibly can. Now, different combinations of buffs give you like different things, but again, what you want is having all three. You always want to have all three. You guys are like, okay, what combo should I be doing while I'm attacking in order to, to get those buffs? Because you can, considering that you now shoot out your Kinsect with your attacks, your Kinsect will absorb buffs, right? So I attack there, he gets me orange. I attack here, hopefully he gets me white. But in this specific case of the head, I would have to like jump into the air and maybe this. It's going to be very hard for me to get red on this specific monster, which is why it's important to teach you press down on right trigger, press down on Y button, boom, he collects the extract. Another way of getting all three extracts is smacking down until you get a wound on the monster. And we already have a wound up in front, but I was trying to get another one here. Once you get the wound, you want to do your focus strike, which is whenever you happen to be in focus mode, you can just press down on R1 or right bumper. That'll do your focus strike. Hit that wound, and then it's going to shoot out the Kinsect, and then the Kinsect comes back with all three extracts. That's another way of you getting all of the extracts at once. So you can get your extracts through just attacking while in focus mode, because the Kinsect will automatically collect those extracts, or you can get them by shooting out your Kinsect by pressing down on right trigger and triangle, and just trying to collect all three like that. Or you can also use the focus strike, which will get you all 3 extracts at once. And then yet another way is you can charge your Kinsect, and once you throw a charged Kinsect, he will collect as many extracts as it can. Now, different type of Kinsects actually vary in the number of extracts that they can collect. So right now we have a Kinsect that has extract boost, which means that he can actually collect 3 extracts if I charge him up. So the way to charge up your Kinsect is you're going to hold down on the right trigger, and then you're going to hold down on triangle. And now that it's charged, you can see that it's charged. You're going to release it. And the Kinsect is going to go through, and it is going to try and collect as many extracts as it can. In this case, it only collected 2 because we only hit like 2 portions of the monster. If you hit it again, you can try to nail a couple more things. This time we collected 3. But this is also another way of you collecting your extracts. Charge up your Kinsect, shoot it out. And this is one of those situations where, like I told you, having paddles really helps, because if you're holding down on right trigger and then you're pressing down on triangle, how the hell are you going to be expected to be moving your camera around and moving your character around and still aiming the camera? It's going to be a little bit tough, whereas if you have a paddle, you can just hold down on the paddle, and then you can move the camera, move around, do all of those things, and then just release the paddle and shoots out the Kinsect. So this is why I recommended having control with paddles. Probably mouse and keyboard players who are just going to say, can't relate. I play mouse and keyboard. Feels great. No issues whatsoever. So your mileage will vary greatly. Now, real quick, I'm not going to give you guys a deep dive into Kinsects, but I do want to show you a couple of the Kinsects, just because these Kinsects, you equip them, by the way, by going into the Insect Glaive thing, which was something that I didn't even realize initially. It's like, how do I change Kinsects in this game? Because it always seems like it's slightly different. But if you look here, this is one of the first Kinsects that you're going to be getting. It says Attack Type Severing, Kinsect Powder Poison, and then it has its own boosts, which in this case is going to be Harvest Extract and Extract Boost Recovery. So this means that whenever you shoot out this Kinsect, if you happen to pick out a green extract, you're going to get a little bit more healing from it, because this Kinsect has the extract boost on recovery. Because it has the Harvest Extract, it means on certain situations he's able to pick up 3 extracts instead of 1. It is Severing. That means that it deals slashing damage, so you're going to be able to chop tails with it, even with the Kinsect. The Kinsect Powder is a type of powder that gets attached to the monster whenever the Kinsect attacks it. And this is something that is a mechanic that I feel like is not as much used in Monster Hunter Wilds, but it is still something that I'm going to be showing you how to do. Now, beyond that, you also have all types of different status on this Kinsect, which, as you can see, it says their powder effect, power, speed, stamina. So power is going to be the damage that the Kinsect itself is going to inflict. Speed is going to be how fast the Kinsect is, and stamina is how long the Kinsect can be outside for without needing to return to you in order to recover. All these stats are relevant for your own playstyle. I'm sure that somebody's got like a meta list where it's like, no, this is the best Kinsect. Me personally, I just tend to pick however I feel like. So if we look, for instance, here is a different type of Kinsect. This one has the blunt attack type. You can see that its stats are like powder effect, power, speed, stamina. This is also based on your Insect Glaive. So because the Insect Glaive that I have equipped right now is the Hope Glaive, you know, the Kinsect is going to be very low level and its stats are going to be very low. If I was to equip the Lalabarina Insect Glaive, as you can see, the stats change drastically. And this is also based on the Kinsect level of your Insect Glaive. These stats will be higher, the Kinsect will be more effective, depending on the Kinsect level, which the Glaive that I'm using has max level of 10, which I believe is currently the max level for Kinsects. And I know a lot of you guys are getting a little bit, whoa, what the crap, bro? What is going on? But yes, these are all important things to consider. But for now, just think of it like this. Do I want my Kinsect to deal slashing damage, or do I want my Kinsect to deal blunt damage? And you just look at attack type Severing versus attack type Blunt. Me personally, I like Blunt because I already have slashing damage on the Insect Glaive itself, and that allows me to every now and again get a cheeky KO with the Kinsect, because the Kinsect is hitting for blunt while I'm hitting for severing, and I like that particular mechanic of it. A lot of players will swear by different things, so it's whatever. There's different attack stats in there. You can check those out and try to figure those out for yourself, because if I'm trying to do like an explanation on Kinsects, that's going to be like an even longer video than it already is going to be. So yeah. but different stats and all that stuff. Me personally, I like this one. It's blunt, it's got the blast powder, and it also has the harvest extract. I always like having harvest extract because, like I said, in certain situations, you can get your Kinsect to collect 3 extracts, and that is massive. It also has fast charge, even though that's not really a big deal, but whatever. I like this one. I crafted this one, and I haven't really touched anything else. But yeah, with that said, we're going to be sticking with this, and you guys should look into Kinsects maybe a little bit more deeply when you know more about the weapon, because at the beginning, it's not really a big deal. Just raise whatever Kinsect you feel like, and then figure that stuff out later. I just want to get you guys out there and actually playing the weapon. So I already explained to you guys that you can send out the Kinsect and then bring it back using right trigger triangle, right trigger circle, but the thing that I haven't told you guys is that you can keep him out and you can keep attacking. And this is just like a fun little thing, but let's say, for instance, you want the insect to attack multiple times. You can just keep mashing triangle while the insect is out and being like, yep, keep doing it. Boink, boink, boink. It just keeps attacking. But naturally, you're not going to be able to do anything while the Kinsect is doing this because you're just focusing on mashing it. Another thing that you can do is you can fire a pheromone. Now, the way that you do this is you hold down on right trigger and then you press down on R1 or the right bumper. Bang. Kinsect goes out and just starts poking away out of his own volition. And you will notice that when the Kinsect does this, it's putting out these little powder things here. And this is the powder that we were talking about. Now, in my case, this powder does blast, so it inflicts the blast ailment on the monster whenever you detonate this. The way that you detonate this is either you, or if you happen to be in a multiplayer quest, anyone really, can just attack the powder and it will detonate. Big explosion, and as you can see, we also got the blast proc right there. So that's one of the ways of doing it. You just have the Kinsect out and do that. Another way of doing the pheromone, by the way, we're going to call him back. You can call him back by pressing right trigger circle. Another way of doing the pheromone is just pressing on right trigger, and now we'll do an attack. That places down a pheromone. And that will also cause the Kinsect to repeatedly attack that specific spot. Now, if you put the pheromone on the head, you can actually get the Kinsect to eventually get a KO. So the Kinsect just goes there, keeps attacking. He's also collecting extracts while he's doing it. But, yeah, usually you would do this just to generate the powders, just to harass the monster, and to have the Kinsect out there attacking while you're doing other things. So if you are playing in focus mode, this is not as important because you're going to shoot out your Kinsect as you are attacking anyways, and your Kinsect's going to be automatically collecting things. But you can also just be like, well, I don't like playing in focus mode. Okay, if you don't like playing in focus mode, then that's a pretty good argument for you to go ahead, shoot out a pheromone, and have your Kinsect out while you are doing other things. Even though, again, my big recommendation is just play in focus mode. But for those of you that don't like to do that, at least you can get the flexibility of dropping these powders, which also explode. And like I said, there's different types of powders. There's poison powders. There's healing powders. There's a bunch of different things that you can go and do with these Kinsects while you're figuring out what attacks you're doing and all of that good stuff. Now, another very important thing to talk about, which I kind of already brought up, was the Focus Strike. Focus Strike is super important because it gives you all of those juicy extracts in one go. But another important thing to talk about is that you can also perform the Focus Strike while in the air. Now, I'm not going to be going over vaulting quite yet because there's a lot of nuance to that as well. But vaulting, it's very quickly to tell you guys how to jump. It's just right trigger and cross. That'll get you to jump. And you can perform this strike while in the air. So if let's just jump up in the air and then press R1 when we're close enough to the wound. Boom. And you can do it, and you still get the 3 extracts while in the air. This is particularly useful in this weapon because it is one of the few weapons that can get wounds that are like high up on the monster that some other weapons might not reach. You can just jump up in the air and then try and go and hit those wounds that are on a higher portion of the monster using your Focus Strike. But yeah, that's Focus Strike, and do remember that you can also do it from the air. So now let's talk about your basic attacks. Well, your triangle can be used to kind of like reposition, so you can do directional inputs, and your character is going to move in that general direction while still performing attacks. But yeah, it can be used for that. But at the same time, one of the more powerful ways of using the triangle attack is actually from neutral. So without an input, your character actually does all of these attacks, which is pretty good. And you can do a 3-attack combo. That is very, very good. Let me just do a focus strike here to recover all of my extracts. And then you have your circle attack. If you mash circle, you're going to do this move, followed by the tornado slash. Once again, if you are going from neutral, it's going to give you a slightly different move. Now, one of the recommended things that Capcom says is if you do this tornado slash and you keep the button pressed, that is going to allow you to go into the charged attack of the Insect Glaive. So if we just do circle into circle, and then keep circle pressed, and then release at the end of that animation, you're going to go into the strong attack. So there is a strong attack that is only available to you when you have the red buff, even though, like I said, basically, if you don't have all of your extracts, you should be focusing on getting your extracts rather than dealing damage. That's just the nature of this weapon. If you're not fully buffed, you don't want to be doing anything else but ensuring that you are getting fully buffed. Regardless of whichever one of the means that I told you at the beginning you're going to be using, try to get your full buff as fast as possible. As a matter of fact, I would consider Insect Glaive to be one of the weapons that people should give priority to when it comes to wounds. It is one of the most important weapons to get wounds to ensure that you have your flow of getting your extracts. So other players, if you happen to be in multiplayer with an Insect Glaive player, please be nice. Let them get a couple of wounds every now and then, and don't be greedy and chopping up all the wounds for yourself. Insect Glaive and Charge Blade, I think, are like the most important weapons when it comes to this, but I might be missing a weapon that I'm not thinking of right now, because I get my brain formatted for the specific weapon that I'm focusing on at the time. But, yeah, very important thing. You have this charge attack once you get your extracts. In order to perform the charge attack, you just hold on the circle button, or if you have the paddle configuration that I told you, hold down on the right paddle. And as you can see, there's 2 steps to this charge. When you release, you're going to get this attack. This attack is also an offset attack, but it is quite tricky to time, so I'm not going to be showing you guys, but trust me, this is an offset attack. If you land this on a monster's face, while it is doing an attack, you're going to perform an offset, monster's going to get knocked down, all of that good stuff, right? You obviously want to do it on the second charge because it will deal more damage, but if you're not able to, doing it on the first charge is better than not doing it at all. So do keep that in mind. But yeah, so in order to really use this particular attack effectively, what I personally like to do, like I said, Capcom suggests the combo of doing this into Tornado Slash and then keeping the button pressed and then releasing at the end of Tornado Slash, and you're going to do the combo. So that's one way of doing things. My recommendation is actually just hold the button down and then do Y combos, or triangle combos, sorry. And then at the end of the third attack of triangle, you can release it and go into your charged attack. And this, again, is the reason why I'm not a big fan of this control scheme, but it is what it is. If you're using paddles, it becomes much better because you can hold the attack, and you can still run around, turn your camera, do all of that stuff. You can be attacking with triangle, punishing the monsters while always holding the attack, and then finally you can release whenever you are ready. And I actually messed it up because I ran out of buffs. Let me get all the buffs. You can actually release the attack when you are ready, whenever you are done with all of your triangle attacks, and that is going to launch you into the charge attack. Now, there is a follow-up to this charge attack, which is the spiral slash. So if you do the charge attack, and then afterwards you press circle again, and this only works if you're in focus mode, so if you're not in focus mode, you have to do the charge attack, and then go into focus mode, and then do another circle input. And it is going to do this, the rising spiral slash. So the idea of the rising spiral slash is like, it's this very strong payoff. It's almost like the super amped elemental discharge of the Insect Glaive, which if you've never played Charge Blade, you're not going to know what that is. But it's the big payoff attack for this weapon. It's like the Wyvern Fire on the gun lance. It's like the I don't know, whatever other big payoffs you can think of for any weapon, like the zero-sum, not zero-sum discharge, because the big payoff now would be the full release slash. I'm terrible with names, but you guys get the idea, right? The big payoff attack of this weapon is going to be that, the Rising Spiral Slash. And the idea that they have for this attack is actually quite good, which is you do the attack, and then afterwards, your Kinsect gets shot out and does a bunch of attacks in order to try and collect all of your extracts again, because performing this attack uses all of your extracts. And so the idea here is you perform this attack, and if you miss, you get punished because your Kinsect didn't collect any of the extracts. And if you hit, you get rewarded, but you took a chance, and now your insect brings back all the extracts to you. However, in practice, this doesn't happen. Because fundamentally, even though your Kinsect hits all over the monster, it very rarely collects all of the extracts that you need in order to get you back up to snuff. So the idea is, the way that I tend to do this attack is I wait until a wound is open, and then I perform the Rising Spiral Slash. Only when a wound is open will I perform the Rising Spiral Slash, and usually I'll be slashing away a little bit to make use of my, additional buffs, additional damage, all of that stuff, get my openings, do a bunch of charge stacks, and then eventually I do the Rising Spiral Slash when there's a wound open, so that I can follow up the Rising Spiral Slash with the Focus Strike in order to recover all of my extracts and get back into fighting form. So I would recommend only doing Rising Spiral Slash when there is a wound open so that you can kind of like recover. And do remember, you can hit that from the air while you're recovering from your Rising Spiral Slash. So, like that. And that's kind of like the ideal scenario because you shoot it out, you land, all of your extracts are back up, and you're back to dishing out damage against the monster. That is the ideal scenario for this, but obviously it's not always going to work like that. And now I hear you guys saying, but Rurikhan, you said I was going to be the king of the skies, which, by the way, I did not. I said that the weapon has a lot of aerial stuff. But regardless of that, you said I was going to be in the air. Okay, let's talk about vaulting then, because I already gave you guys the basics of the combo. By the way, the more recommended combo that I would do is you hold down on circle or your right paddle, and then you do 3 attacks from neutral with triangle, and then you release the circle for the follow-up, and then, if it is appropriate, follow that up with Spiral Slash or reset, charge up the attack again, and keep going. If you have the opportunity for an offset, just release it and try to land that offset. This offset's going to require, I feel like, a little bit more practice. But yeah, and if you're like, oh, I can't press the button like this, like that, and the other, yeah, guess what? Go tell it to Capcom, because I also made a big video talking about that. Very, very frustrating. But regardless of that, let's get into vaulting. So vaulting, right trigger and cross, that is going to yeet you up into the air. And then if you do right trigger, cross, and triangle, you're going to be doing the helicopter attack. And if you land on the monster, you're going to get bounced up into the air, and you can do this up to 3 times. And every time that, every time that you do this, it is going to increase the damage a little bit while you're in the air. So you can play this weapon very aerial-like, but that's not going to be where your best damage is going to be coming from. It is, however, an excellent way of positioning yourself while you are fighting the monster. However, the helicopter is not the only thing you can do while in the air. If you press circle, it is going to bring you crashing down onto the monster in your chosen direction. And this is a very effective move. However, you can also charge the circle attack while in the air. And if you do it, you get the strong descending thrust, which your character kind of like jumps down at the monster. You have to be charging it in the air. You can't like charge it in the ground. The charge needs to be done in the air. So you can charge it on the ground, but when you jump, it's going to reset your charge. And then once you have it fully charged up in the air, you can release circle, and that is going to cause you to come crashing down. And you've guessed it. If you follow it up with another circle input after that, that's going to give you the Rising Spiral Slash, except this time from the air. and I ran out of extracts, which is one of the more frustrating aspects. If you're just starting out, something that might help you is going to be Power Prolonger. Usually in these tutorials, I like just having the more basic weapon of the game to kind of like give you an idea what it feels like with the most basic weapon, because it only gets better from there. But Power Prolonger is something that you can use, even though because of the builder-spender nature of the weapon right now, where you're building up these extracts and then spending them on one big attack, it means that you're going to have to constantly be recuperating them. So it's helpful for you to learn, but it is a skill that you want to wean off a little bit later. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, you can do the charge in the air, release, and then press circle again, and then it's going to cause you to do the rising spiral slash as a follow-up. So this is kind of like your follow-ups from aerial. Another thing that you can do while you are vaulting is, and again, vaulting is right trigger cross, or right trigger X. A lot of people tell me to say right trigger X for some reason. You can press X again to do a mid-air evade. So this is to kind of like help you position. And you can kind of like combo this. And by the way, I'm going to eat a well-done steak so that I max out my stamina, because being in the air eats up your stamina. So that means that if you want to be someone that really wants to focus in the air, you might want to get some points in Constitution or something. That also happens. That also helps. But you can do your mid-air evade, then you can do the hop, and then you can do another evade, then you can do the thing that does another hop if you happen to land. And you can stay in the air for a fairly lengthy amount of time if you play your cards right, if that's something that you really want to do. And it's a little bit of a fun kind of thing, like Floor is Lava. You can kind of play that game with the Insect Glaive, but do keep in mind that doing all of those things is fun and visually satisfying and pretty good for positioning, but at the same time, that's not your best damage. And the reason it's not your best damage is because, quite simply, it's too safe to be in the air, right? You're in the air, you're going to be a little bit too safe. But these are some of the things that you can do with the Insect Glaive. You can keep like darting around the monster while you're in the air. You're also going to be charging up your attack. Like just do this, jump over here, bam, do another one, jump over here. And then at the end of the last one, you can do the crashing down. And then you can follow up with the rising spiral slash. And then if you're able to nail the coming back down bit, you can also do that to get all of your extracts back. That is going to require quite a bit of practice, so I would recommend practice it, see how it feels. One of the things that I've noticed is that for some reason in this Monster Hunter, I struggle a little bit with the right trigger input. So a lot of times you'll see me do this when I was trying to jump into the air. So if that happens, try pressing cross a little bit faster than you would have pressed the trigger, and that will help you out with getting up in the air with vault. But yeah, this is a weapon that requires quite a bit of practice, quite a bit of adaptation when it comes to its controls, so keep that in mind. Now naturally, with it being an aerial weapon, you're also going to have aerial games, so you can jump off. If you jump off of a ledge and you press triangle, that's going to give you the helicopter move. If you jump off of the ledge with your weapon unsheathed and you press circle, that's going to give you the jumping slash. It's going to be very rough to jump off of a ledge unless it's very, very tall and get enough charge to do your charge attack. So keep that in mind. But like if we were to vault from a much taller one, like say over here, this should enable us to do the stronger move, the charged downward slash, whatever it is. Like we just jump here, charges, and then you can do it. But from a small ledge like that one, you're not going to be able to pull that one off. And you can also do the sliding attack, obviously, even though with the Insect Glaive, do you really need to do the sliding attack? But it just kind of goes into the helicopter for the sliding attack. But yeah, these are pretty much all of the moves. Now let me show you guys how Seikret works. Seikret's fairly simple when it comes to this one, but the really cool thing is that whenever you are on Seikret and you press triangle, he shoots out the Kinsect, and the Kinsect collects extracts. So you can be on the run, and you can be collecting extracts from the monster, which is actually useful in case you are missing like a specific buff. You can try to get the Kinsect to hit the head, even though that's going to be somewhat challenging. But yeah, in case the monster is running away and you're just like running after the monster and you got nothing to do, yeet your Kinsect at it. Like we've been able to get 2 extracts there. But yeah, that's kind of like Seikret. And then you also have the triangle circle attack off of Seikret, even though that's not, it's kind of like tricky to nail, but you know, deals a little bit of damage. It's whatever. But yeah, in case you guys are wondering, the way that I personally play the weapon is usually I try getting all of the extracts. The way that I usually go for it is I will charge the Kinsect like I showed you. So you hold down on right trigger, then you hold down on triangle, or in my case, the left paddle, and then you release that, and it's going to shoot out the Kinsect, and it's going to collect a bunch of extracts. If, like me, you have a Kinsect that has Harvest Extract Boost or Harvest Extract Focus or whatever it's called, then whenever he shoots out, he's actually going to collect 3 different extracts rather than 2. And that is going to be more useful. But yeah, after I get all of my extracts, I'll try to go up to the monster, start charging up on the charge attack. I'll always be pressing down on the paddle that I use for the charge attack. Then I'll just like go in, punish the monster a little bit with regular attacks. Then eventually when there's an opening big enough, I'll do strong descending slash. Or if the monster happens to give me an attack that I kind of feel like I can land the offset, I'm going to throw out the offset a little bit sooner to try and nail that. But then I'll only ever go for the Rising Spiral Slash whenever I see a wound in the monster, like the one we have on the right side there, so that I can like come back down after this attack and try to nail that wound like we did right there, because that will enable me to go ahead and grab all of the extracts and be ready to go again. And usually another thing that I will do often is like as I'm charging, I'll jump into the air using right trigger and cross. And then I'll start, you know, positioning myself a little better. Sometimes I can come on down, which, by the way, the strong descending thrust, that is also an offset attack, but it is tremendously hard to hit. Or maybe I'm just not that good, but I had a really tough time hitting this as an offset attack, but it can be done. And that's usually the way that I play. Whenever there's an opening, I'll just come in and I'll go 1, 2, 3, then follow it up with the charge attack. And then if the opening's big enough, I'll follow up with the Rising Slash, or if there's no wounds open, I'll just continue charging and punishing like so, and then releasing until the wound opens up, and when the wound opens up, then we do the Rising Spiral Slash, and then we'll try to follow it up with the Focus Strike. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is Insect Glaive. One of the things about this particular guide that I should also mention is I'm not a big fan of the current iteration of the weapon because of its control scheme. I find it very frustrating, so I might have missed something in this guide, but hopefully it still helped you out. But yeah, that's going to be it for Insect Glaive. If you guys enjoyed it, hit the like button if it helped you out. Make sure to subscribe, bell notification icon, and all that jazz for more Monster Hunter guides and news. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe, peace out.